Film is a medium that transports. All I have to do is pop myself in front of the TV to watch a movie, and I can just enjoy it, whatever place the film takes me to.
Movies have always been an escape. It gives you a whole new world to be in.
I have a rekindled love affair with movies.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Reel to Reel Talk. It is time once again to talk all things movies with more than just one person.
Yay!
I am Sergio Barrera, and joining me is the guy who's been holding the fort down these last few days, last couple of weeks, Paul Britton. Paul, I'm just going to start by saying thank you. I know we talked off camera, but
I got to talk to movies with myself, which is honestly my favorite thing to do. So.
Well,
no
it's one of those things where sometimes life is life, and you were a hero for us. So thank you so much.
Shit happens, man. And I wasn't about to let things like Belfast and Red Notice go unnoticed. Go uncommented on. It's important.
No, absolutely. Two good films. I really am curious to see how Red Notice will fare in the Oscars. Kidding. That was a fun film, Belfast. Man, I'm sorry I missed that conversation. But speaking of award season, today we are going to feature in this conversation someone who is always a player in the realm of award shows and such. Someone who has some very unique films in his filmography that, in some cases, I think are hard to categorize in terms of his style and such. We were talking about the films of Ridley Scott on this, Paul, get ready, the 99th episode of Reel to Reel Talk. 99 episodes. So extremely proud of that. I think back to when you and I did that first episode, just you and I, in the beginning.
I almost think we should take 3 weeks off just so that our 100th can be the Matrix episode. I feel bad for doing 3 alone episodes. I feel like maybe I should have not done them just so that the Matrix episode would have been our 100th episode. But yeah, that's going to be a good time.
Well, we can look at our calendar and see how things are going. But no, the idea of having now 99 episodes ready to go into the queue is exciting. We miss Susan. Susan is busy living life, doing the thing with her nursing school, and we're very proud of her for doing that. And so we are excited, and we think of her as we do these episodes.
Yes.
As we're approaching 100, I'm just so thrilled.
99 episodes, and Kevin Costner ain't one.
Maybe that's the 100th episode.
No.
We can have a formalized 4-hour debate on the merits of Kevin Costner, with Waterworld being my foundation film to talk about.
I watched Waterworld for this podcast, so we can move on from Kevin Costner completely. Thank you.
Gotcha. Okay, fine. Then the 13th Warrior and its merits. So whatever it ends up being, we will keep you posted. So right now, though, we're going to talk about Ridley Scott and his filmography. And as part of this discussion, we're going to review House of Gucci, his latest release, second release this year from Ridley Scott, the first being The Last Duel. And yeah, I'm excited about this conversation, Paul, because I think we have, I don't know, we might have different views on his films and what works for us. So
sure,
I say
there's overlap, though. We know based on conversations we have had on movies before, there is heavy overlap.
Right. Absolutely. And so the idea, I think, is just to sort of run through the filmography, not in any particular order, but, sure. I want you to sort of maybe throw us a bone to get started, because there are some films that I know for me are, quote, favorites, although they kind of rotate in and out depending. But I will say this before we start. It seems like we can categorize, if we try to, his films into at least 2 categories, with the rest being miscellaneous, and that is science fiction and movies about despicable people. And
historically despicable people. Not just, anybody can make a movie about crappy people. It takes somebody of Ridley Scott's caliber to make a movie about historically despicable people.
Right.
So
absolutely. And so we'll talk about some of that. He also is big with the epic film.
Yeah, but and I think saying that those are his only two categories, I think there's three categories. I think there's science fiction, I think there's historical epics of horrible people, and then I think there is the character exploration, which more often than not is just a refreshing take on having fully formed, powerful women come in and just own a couple hours of screen time.
Gotcha.
Thelma and Louise. We'll just start there.
Sure.
Thelma and Louise, G.I. Jane in an offshoot, but Thelma and Louise is just, I mean, the dude made Thelma and Louise one of the greatest movies of, any decade, and, sits there in the 80s and is just like, or 90s, I'm sorry,
1991,
1991, and it's just like, we're gonna kick the 90s off. I thought it was 89, but we're gonna kick the 90s off with Thelma and Louise, and I mean that's a movie that has a cultural linchpin ending in it. It's just, it's amazing. It's amazing.
It really is, and it's one of those films that when you look back on it, I don't know if I feel like, I think it ages well. I think it's one of those things where it's this iconic moment in his career. Only his, let me see, seventh film.
Yeah.
And this was after Alien, Blade Runner, Black Rain, which which I love that film. Legend was before this.
Yeah.
But Thelma and Louise, I think, puts him on the map in a very unique way. And it's one of those iconic films that it's got to make a list of, are we saying top 5?
Sure. Why not? Yes. I mean, it would be in my top 5 list. So
okay.
It's, it hits on themes that just movies, we're just not hitting on these themes, people. Like, it's just, it absolutely kicked the door down to say, hey, we need to start talking a little more about, I don't know, rape.
Right. Yeah. Right. And it shines a light on some very unique things that maybe to this point hadn't been seen. It's the genre of the buddy road film, crime film.
Right.
But in a very unique way that I think only Ridley Scott could bring to the screen.
Right. And it comes a few years after Accused, but it's just like, it's like, I mean,
Yeah.
And but building on that, I mentioned G.I. Jane, which is just another, just look, your mileage is going to vary on that movie.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
But it's just like, like early, women can absolutely kick ass and can own an action flick.
Absolutely.
And hello, Alien.
Right.
I mean, Sigourney Weaver is Ripley. It's just like, if 1979, one of the greatest horror movies of all time, one of the greatest sci-fi movies of all time.
Right.
Just I don't know.
Yeah, it's really, he starts off very strong in terms of, when you look at his filmography historically, you see that he has a strong start with what are now considered classics. Alien, Blade Runner, Legend. I mean, it just, the list can go on.
Yeah.
And I want to take a moment to share this comment by our friend Susan. And we miss you as well. So thank you for checking in and listening in with us. One of the movies that for me, or one of the categories that for me is sort of my favorite. And actually, before I go to that, would you consider Hannibal in that category of, strong women? Or was that more the story of the Thomas Harris novel?
Well, okay, so that is, so I that third comment category isn't just women. So I would put Hannibal and Matchstick Men sort of, as a character study. Like, gotcha. Matchstick Men is a con movie, but it's more about, the Sam Rockwell and the Nick Cage characters with the girl playing, just like Hannibal is just, obviously about, we know Hannibal Lecter, but
right, exactly.
And I think that for that one, I think that you know, Silence of the Lambs is better, and
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Julianne Moore, who I love. I love Julianne Moore, but
it didn't quite do it.
she's not quite the Jodie Foster in that role. It just I don't know. Like it's called Hannibal, and I think it's called Hannibal for a reason.
Sure, absolutely. One of the things that I also noticed about his filmography is for every epic film that he makes, or slew of, because he'll follow 1, 2, or 3, sort of one right after the other, he'll do a smaller film like Matchstick Men. Yeah. I think of also a movie like Body of Lies, which really wasn't this big epic. When I think about, though, some of the films that for me are standards that I return to time and time again, I have to bring up it's funny, I don't know where to start, but I'm going to just go with Gladiator, because
Gladiator,
I mean, it's easy to say it's a great film. It did very well in the Oscars, and hard to believe that was 21 years ago.
Yeah.
But Gladiator is just one of those examples of how well he does the epic film. And hard to believe that just 1 year later, he puts Hannibal and Black Hawk Down, another fantastic, probably top 5 of mine, of Ridley Scott's films, one right after the other. You know, and so these are films that are huge.
And Gladiator, I mean, comes out in 2000. That's 21 years after his start. And if you want to ignore 1492 Conquest of Paradise, which I think we should, it's his first it's his first successful epic. Gotcha. Historical epic. Let's call it his first successful historical epic. And that's something that comes in big time, as later, especially like fast forward a little bit to 2005 Kingdom of Heaven, which was something we were just talking about before. And I mean, there just ain't, like, Kingdom of Heaven makes Gladiator seem like a nice little flick in its scale, and it's grandeur. It's just magnitude.
And please, Paul, comment on the fact that we did speak off air about the director's cut.
There's a 3 hour and 15-minute director's cut out here. I've not seen the theatrical release, so I watched the director's cut and prep for this. And I mean, there's a whole conversation to be had of comparing this to Gladiator, and saying because Gladiator resonates. I don't think that. In a way that I don't think Kingdom of Heaven resonates, but it's a totally different movie. I'll give it that. But from a just a feeling of heft standpoint, like just from a how does it register with you as a viewer? I feel like Kingdom of Heaven it's just like, it's beautiful, and it's a lot to take in, but also at the end you're not like, yeah, Russell Crowe, fuck yeah,
Right, yeah, it doesn't have that. I mean, it's great in the moment, but when it passes, I think you're right. It doesn't really have that sort of epic feel that a Gladiator did, in terms of its staying with you. Although I will say that that's a movie that I go to time and again. I own both cuts and love Kingdom of Heaven. I also am a huge fan of 2007's American Gangster. I love mob films. And Ridley Scott gets it right when it comes to American Gangster. It's Denzel Washington. He gets back with, oh, goodness gracious. I do this all the time. Russell Crowe. And it's just a fantastic look at Frank Lucas, gangster from, one of the first, if not the first, African-American gangsters that was of note. And American Gangster, I'm not sure where you land on that film, Paul.
No, I've only seen it once. It's not one I've revisited, but it's good. It's good.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me throw this one at you, because I'm literally looking at your reaction. We get Russell Crowe once again in 2010 as Ridley Scott puts out his version of Robin Hood. What are your thoughts, or have you seen it?
Yeah, we could go on to next is Prometheus.
I love it.
That one doesn't.
It doesn't land on the radar. I finally revisited it, and I was like, oh yeah, no.
You revisited it? See,
I did.
I guess if I were gonna have a reason to revisit it, this pod would have been it. But
I think Kevin Costner's was better.
I did not. I agree with you 100%. 100%. It is a better movie. Kevin Costner drives me insane in that movie, but Alan Rickman, falling off the Nakatomi Plaza at the end. Wait,
no,
I'm sorry. Alan Rickman saying he's going to gouge out his eyes with spoons, which I fully support, by the way.
Yeah, great.
Because
stuff.
It would hurt more, by the way.
Because it would hurt. Yeah, exactly. But why would it?
No, yeah, Robin Hood is a great example of here's another historical epic.
Yeah,
that is it suffers also from the whole did we really need this,
right?
And every 10 years it seems like we're going to be getting another Robin Hood movie. They just made another one a couple years ago, and it's like we just don't need it, guys. Right. We're done.
Well, don't get me started on do we need another Batman. It's 2 years before we get Prometheus in what was a very promising premise.
Yeah.
Were you excited, Paul, when this film was announced?
I was so excited from this movie, and it brought the horror back into the franchise. Because look, Alien is a horror movie.
Yeah,
flat and simple. The number 2, Aliens, is just a James Cameron action flick.
Right.
Number 3 is a horror movie in some regards. Just in the sense that it. Love you, Fincher, but it doesn't. There's a lot of levels on which it doesn't work.
Gotcha.
It suffers a lot from the 13th Warrior. Could somebody just turn on one light, please? Just one light. I don't need a spotlight, but just something so that I know what's going on.
Yeah.
And then there was the 4th one with Winona Ryder, which I will be burned for saying I actually did enjoy. But Prometheus, I was ridiculously excited for it. And I'm going to tell you, I freaking loved it. I loved it.
I love it for the reasons of everything I wanted after so many years without an Alien movie. And that is backstory, origin story.
So much.
Yeah.
The best part about this backstory is it opens up so many oh my God, that's so awesome. And I didn't even think about that. And it sends your brain scurrying on all these different tracks. And I'm going to say, I know it wasn't super loved, but at that Alien Covenant picked the ball right up from where Prometheus left off and was like, yeah, I'm going to run with this. I'm going to run with it.
I am so happy to hear you say that because I always wonder what people think of Alien Covenant because I absolutely love it. Yeah. I think Michael Fassbender has created such an underrated villain.
Yeah,
that is probably one of the most evil villains in movie history. If maybe I'm overstating, but it's just wonderful. Prometheus and Alien Covenant, I think, were big home runs in my mind from a film standpoint for Ridley Scott. But every so often, Paul, he gives us Exodus, Gods and Kings.
I haven't seen it.
Good. I congratulate you.
Okay.
I congratulate you. So like you did earlier, we're going to jump right to 2015's The Martian.
Yes.
We're gonna science the shit out of this. We're just in the film.
Yeah, we're just gonna say that when you're looking at the Ridley Scott filmography, it's The Martian sandwiched between 2 awesome alien flicks. That's what it is. And The Martian is in my top 2. Aliens 1, The Martian is 2, and I don't know what he would be able to do to make something that would wrench it away. The gap from 2 to 3 for me is. As far away from us as Mars is. It's just
it's one of those things. I read the book after watching the movie.
Okay.
And Paul, I got to tell you, as I read the book, I thought, how was this ever made into a movie? Because it's not the most exciting read. Mm-hmm. But again, Ridley Scott, storyteller that he is able to pull, with his writers, is able to pull together a film that resonates, that is interesting and it kept me on my seat the whole time, wondering what was going to happen next. And good old Matt Damon delivers. By this point, he's just doing some really, really awesome work. But it's also the supporting cast in The Martian that I think really brings it home, as we we need that sort of got to get away from Mars for a little bit.
Yeah.
What is the story going to be? So. Great cast, and again, you mentioned you enjoyed it.
Yes, enjoyed it. Love it.
Love it.
Love Love it.
Awesome.
Everybody has to see The Martian. It's one of those movies that I genuinely feel like if you like movies at all and The Martian is a blind spot, you've got to fill it. You know,
absolutely.
Right up there. Like I'm talking like right up there with like, yeah, okay, you've seen The Godfather finally, now go watch The Martian type of thing. Like it's that friggin' good. It's just it's a masterclass on how to not overdo a movie and just deliver a perfect story.
Between 2017 and 2021, we have 3 films that will categorize within that notion of epic movie / despicable people. But before we do that, there's some science fiction stuff I know you want to talk about, Paul.
Yeah.
And I'd like you to sort of take us on that journey for you, if you would.
We want to go back to the Blade Runner?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
We would be remiss if we didn't.
All right. So Blade Runner is one of the most complicated movies in movie history. And I'm not understating that. Like, it is literally one of those movies that I would never recommend to anybody unless I knew they just loved film. They just love to sit down and absorb film and think about a movie and then realize, 6 months after seeing the movie, I actually have to go back and watch it because I have no idea what I saw. Like after, and it's another one of those movies that is constantly being revisited by the director in that there's the theatrical cut, then there was a director's cut, and then there was another director's cut. And then, so the first director's cut, I think added like 2 or 3 minutes of film. And then there was another director's cut that added like 20 minutes. And then they were like, okay, you know what? Maybe the 20 minutes was too much. We're going to make it just like an additional 10 to 15 minutes. And that's the cut that you're going to find most often. I think it's called the final cut or something like that. That's the one that you would find most often now. And the thing about this movie is that it is a very early on movie that has an open ending. It has an ending that leaves the interpretation up to the viewer of you decide kind of what happened. This shouldn't be a big spoiler alert, but you just never know if Harrison Ford is a human or a replicant. You never so basically Blade Runner is about Harrison Ford going around hunting these androids that were made because they've gotten out of control. And one of the things that the question of the movie is, what is humanity? That's the whole point of the movie, is what is humanity? That's a really complex question. It's a really complex question to tackle in a science fiction movie. It's a really complex question to tackle in a science fiction movie that is just layers and layers and layers of people and androids, just not force feeding anything to you, just layering it in and being like, here's a little few things to nibble on. Here's a few things to nibble on. And it's just, it opens up so much conversation. It's a conversation piece film. That's really what it is. And it's also one of the most beautiful movies ever made. So there's that too. Oh, you're muted.
I guess that would help. Yeah. Did it need a sequel, and did the sequel live up?
Well, okay, so the sequel was not made by Ridley Scott. Right. It was
Denis Villeneuve.
Our wonderful Dune friend, Denis Villeneuve. No. Did it need a sequel? No. Most movies rarely need sequels.
Right.
Did the sequel help? No, it didn't hurt either. Like it really feels like a standalone type of thing.
It was
quite honestly. It feels like it's just Denis Villeneuve had the idea of, I kind of want to visit this universe. Right. And we're just gonna have Harrison Ford pop in. And he's gonna look older, so there you go. He wasn't a replicant. Yeah. I guess.
So, I had to ask because again, it wasn't Ridley Scott's choice, obviously, to make it happen. So
right.
So we get to 2017 after Alien Covenant. We get a film called All the Money in the World, which is one of my top 5 Ridley Scott films.
Wow. Okay.
Paul, as well as anybody else that has listened to the show, that I love talky, sort of dialogue-driven dramas, and this one is that. When it first came out, it was one of the year that it came out. It was one of my end of year 5 movies in one day film.
Okay.
And I felt dirty after. I'm not sure if you've seen it. but it is it chronicles the events surrounding the kidnapping of J. Paul Getty's grandson and the wealth that this man has, and his refusal to try to help the grandson's mother out in getting his grandson back and paying a ransom, and just the whole drama that goes into, you know, seeing a man who is so in love with his money that he doesn't even care about helping his family. It is a fantastic turn by Christopher Plummer.
Yeah,
and just one of those movies that, from, you know, for the kind of films I like, it lands really high on my list of Ridley Scott films.
An interesting little infamous, they had to go back and reshoot an entire character in the movie because they couldn't release the movie with Kevin Spacey. So,
absolutely. And done in a relatively short amount of time, to me, with no dip in terms of quality. In fact, I won't ever see the first one, obviously, but Nobody can't imagine anybody else playing this role. And so I really enjoyed All the Money in the World. We talked about The Last Duel a few weeks ago.
Yes.
And before we get into our review of House of Gucci, Paul, any final thoughts on the films of Ridley Scott? Why are they appealing to you? Anything you'd like to share?
They are grandiose. They are unfailably beautiful, infallibly beautiful. They do such a good job with characters, especially female characters. He really does. You can tell that he puts forth the effort and the time and the thought to be like, let's make a really good character here, and it doesn't have to be a dude.
Right, you know, exactly.
It can be a woman. And
I mean, I think every Alien film, the central piece or the central character is, you know, a strong woman that. I think Prometheus. Well, no, maybe not Prometheus, but I don't know. He does some great storytelling, and he knows what to do with his characters. One of my wife and I's conversations across so many films that we do watch together is like, how do they portray women? And we have seen pretty consistently some good work done by Ridley Scott, which can't be said about everybody. So, all right. Well, that brings us to a movie that I was looking forward to tremendously from the very first time I saw a trailer a few months ago. And that is the last week's release of House of Gucci by Ridley Scott. This film is just Paul, I loved it. I'm just going to start there.
Great.
I loved this film.
Great.
For the reason of the cast, for the way in which they each committed to their characters. When we think about someone like an Adam Driver, who is always reliable, Jared Leto playing yet another over-the-top character, Jeremy Irons in a role that I think he should be considered for as far as awards of some sort, even though he was only on screen a few minutes. Al Pacino, give or take. But Lady Gaga. I mean,
Lady Gaga.
Goodness gracious. What a powerful force.
She's so good in this.
Oh, man. This is Oscar. You know, again, maybe I'm.
All right.
I can't say anything other than I enjoyed this film.
I don't know if I have a problem or if the film has a problem, but you know, you go to IMDb and you click on House of Gucci, and they always put the genres on top, and they usually put up to 3 genres. And the genres for House of Gucci are crime and drama. There has to be a third one, and quite frankly, it has to be the first thing listed, and it has to be comedy, because this is first and foremost a comedy. Like if anybody goes into this movie and takes anything that Jared Leto does during this even remotely seriously, and doesn't just buy into, if you don't think that they knew they were making a comedy, this is probably one of the worst movies ever made. Like, and I genuinely mean that. Like, this movie, if you take it seriously, if you take it at face value, this movie's terrible.
Right. I get
that. If you just go in and are like, this is really fucking funny, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I fall somewhere in between because
Yeah.
I was having a lot of fun with it, but I also was like, man, if this isn't your brand of humor, this sucks. Like it just flat out sucks.
Yeah.
So
I think the the humor that is threaded throughout takes us through some moments that might otherwise just sort of, not horrify us necessarily, but just make us shake our heads at like these people, I think that the character arc of Adam Driver's Mauricio and, how he changes over the course of the film and, how you think him, right?
Right.
And then the evolution, it's very subtle. There's some things that Ridley Scott does in his directing with this film that plays really well into an actor like Adam Driver because he is so good at subtle,
So, question, how do you feel about Adam Driver being transformed from probably easily one of the most sympathetic characters in this movie, or like any Ridley Scott movie, quite frankly, in the first half hour, to being one of the most despicable in the movie? Like, it's a real transfer, and it's jarring. It's like, wow, I really, really, really like this guy in the first act,
right?
And by the third act, you're like, I don't blame Lady Gaga at all.
Okay, so interesting you say that because I felt like her character's arc was a perfect sort of catalyst for his change, but then it kept going, right? And so I liked that the way in which he does become that despicable character, but it's rooted in her initial treatment of him and trying to sort of play him in the beginning because she knew what she was after, right?
Yes.
And then I didn't dislike her any less as a result of his change. Right?
She is constantly like just in the gutter, like she,
right?
Not derogatory sense, but
no.
in a sense of she's just like a bad, like she's just not a good person. She's not a good person.
His father knew why she was there.
Right.
And that's where that whole conflict comes in. And that's the other thing I loved about this film is the familial conflicts that play out don't become overbearing, but they drive the narrative really, really well. And so when you get to where you finally meet, because it's a while before you meet Al Pacino, Aldo Gucci and his son and the rest of the family. Yeah, Paolo. You realize, okay, this is the ride we're on.
Yeah.
This is a family that will have no redeeming qualities. And by the end of the film, when you see the flashes of the sort of aftermath, the verbiage and such that's displayed, you're like, well, yeah, that's exactly what should happen.
Right.
I will say this before we get any more thoughts from you. I was actually very taken by John Huston, who played the family lawyer, Domenico.
Okay.
Very subtle role, but so good. And he has these couple of moments that he's just like twisting the knife,
Yeah.
I don't know. It works so well on so many levels for me.
The thing about this movie is that everybody has an agenda, and it is just absolutely fascinating to watch the agendas play out. And even dummy Paolo has an agenda. It's just everybody has an agenda, and you have to separate Jared Leto and Paolo when you talk about that, because Jared Leto clearly also had an agenda. And so good God, that is one of them. Like, you could write a book just about Jared Leto's turn as Paolo Gucci.
Sure. Not to mention other roles, but
yeah.
So all in all, this movie is going to definitely land in the award season recognition.
I don't know, because I think it's not going to win anything, because there's going to be maybe art direction. It has a chance for art direction just because of how beautiful it is. But like, I mean, it's
not even for acting.
Because if people take it as a drama, I think the acting is terrible.
Okay.
except for Jeremy Irons. Jeremy Irons is fantastic. Yeah. You as a comedy or a drama, Jeremy Irons is fantastic, but he's playing the straight man throughout.
Right.
You know, like true. he's playing the straight man, so he's a potential. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, best supporting actor, I guess Jeremy Irons, but like I would say they all deserve something. Like maybe the SAG award for ensemble, because it's insane. It's insane what they do, and it's a lot of fun if this is your type of fun. It's not everybody's type of fun.
Understood.
Yeah.
Well, here on Reel to Reel Talk, we have a 5 taco rating system that we use to rate all of the films that we review. A movie can get as many as 5 tacos, but if you want to give it some extra love, you can throw on some guac. So for The House of Gucci, Ridley Scott's latest entrance, Paul, where do you land?
I'm going with 3+ guac. And this is honestly just a recognition of if I remember correctly, I gave The Last Duel 4 tacos, and I did not enjoy this as much as The Last Duel. Like it at the end of the movie, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, but really at the end, that's all it is. Is just it's a farce. It is a farce, and it's a fun farce. And I'm glad I saw it, but man, it is. It's a trip. So 3+ guac.
Well, you know that I love farcical things and movies of this type, so I'm going to land on 4 tacos plus guac, and that guac is all Lady Gaga.
Yeah,
she was a gem to watch on screen. I really enjoyed it, but also some of my favorite actors are in this film. Jeremy Irons. Again, such a great turn for such a short time, and I am I don't mind admitting, a huge Adam Driver fan. For him to hold his own against this kind of cast shows the value of what he brings, and I think it's past due for him to get some awesome recognition, but I'm hoping perhaps that'll come soon. So 4 tacos plus guac for House of Gucci. All right. Well, Paul, it's been fun talking about Ridley Scott. We want to remind folks that you can find us on social media, and we ask that you do so. Stop by Facebook, just type in Reel to Reel Talk and go to our page, give it a like, and check out past episodes. They are streaming there. You can also check out all the other films that we've been watching and things of that nature. Also on Instagram, you can find us at Reel to Reel Talk for all of our show posters. And if you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much for doing so. Please click that subscribe button and click the notification bell so you know when our episodes post week to week. We are live most Tuesday nights every week, whether it's Paul or us. And but we do ask that you, if you miss it, check it out on our YouTube channel, Reel to Reel Talk, and we thank you for doing so. It is now time for a segment that I absolutely love because Paul, what the hell did you watch this week?
So I had planned a double, the first ever What the Hell Did I Just Watch double feature, which is a double feature of Italian cannibal films from 1980, starring former porn star Robert Kerman.
There you go.
Those movies being Eaten Alive and Cannibal Holocaust. But I decided not to do them because they really are truly horrible, and I've already given them enough screen time. And instead, I'm going to talk about Nick Cage's Pig.
Gotcha.
And this, if you've seen Pig, you're gonna like, why would this be on there? It's not weird, and absolutely, this is a genuinely really good movie. Genuine movie too. Like, and not at all what I was expecting, even from the trailer. Not at all what I was expecting. So this gets the what the hell did I just watch from the sense of going into a movie expecting one thing and just getting something completely different.
Gotcha.
Something genuine, heartfelt, emotional, touching. Not what you're expecting. Like you go into this thinking you're getting Nick Cage hobo John Wick because he's going after his kidnapped pig. It's not that at all. It's just not. And it happened to be on Hulu. It was just added to Hulu, and so that's why I watched it. And then I watched it this week, and I was like, you know what? Those cannibal movies are genuinely not good. And I could talk about how 2 really bad movies for a while, but I'd rather try to get people to go watch Pig. So here it is, Pig on Hulu. Sergio, especially you, I cannot recommend this movie enough.
Okay.
I really genuinely hope you watch this movie. You're going to watch the first half hour, and then the second and third act just get flipped on their head, and it's just totally different. And it's fantastic. It's fantastic. And you're going to be like, wow, I wasn't expecting that. So
that's
there
what
you
I
go.
like.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, I will definitely check that out. You said it can be found on Hulu. Is that correct?
Hulu. Yeah. It's free on Hulu now. Well, not free, but if you have a Hulu subscription, free.
All right. Well, we thank you, Paul, for always entertaining us with your What the Hell Did I Just Watch segment. Absolutely. We look forward to hearing from you week to week. And guys, you can make sure you catch up on all the weirdness that Paul brings us, because it's always entertaining. Real-Time Rewind will be back whenever we're back next, probably next week, I imagine, or who knows. But
yeah, we're going to be back next week. Come on.
Real-Time Rewind is, I haven't really had a chance to catch up on a lot of other films
that
I want to suggest. So I guess this would be a great time for me to just flash the 13th Warrior on the screen. And there you go.
Why? We didn't need that. Do a
did.
double feature of 13th Warrior and Kingdom of Heaven. And honestly, like I think there are parallels there.
Oh my.
And I would be interested in other people's take on that.
Yeah.
Like, you know, just yeah.
Two very good films.
One very good film and one
not so good.
Actually,
very
you could do a trilogy of Alien 3, 13th Warrior, Kingdom of Heaven, and just super dark movie, what's going on, to super dark movie, what's going on, period piece, to period piece. And it's like it's
there you go.
6 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
We might have to do that. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that brings us to this week's real quick reviews. You want to take a few moments to just talk about 2 new releases this week. You and I both watched King Richard, the latest Will Smith film. And I have been dying to have this conversation with you, Paul, because I'm really interested to see what you thought about this film. I went into this film having always been a very big fan of Venus and Serena Williams, knowing the ins and outs of the story of Richard Williams. And I got to tell you, I had to really remind myself I'm reviewing the film.
Interesting.
You know what I'm saying? Because I'll put it this way. And again, I know exactly what I'm saying and what I'm doing. And I know it's not the way I should look at this. But this film did nothing to make me feel any sort of appreciation for Richard Williams.
Okay.
From the outset, when I saw the trailers for this film, and I'm not sure if you and I had this conversation, but I was struck by the fact that perhaps there's a story to be told if we focus on the sisters, right?
Mm-hmm.
But again, that's my personal view of the man. But I cannot take away the absolute performance that Will Smith delivers.
Sure.
I agree with a couple of reviews that I've read that this might be his best since Ali.
Sure.
So I really had to work hard to separate my feelings about the man that's being portrayed and the film and the quality of this film. And so it was a really interesting watch because I had to struggle to remember I'm reviewing the film, not the man. Does that make sense?
Sure, and it does. And the interesting thing about this movie is that the Williams sisters were producers on it. I believe they were executive producers, but they were producers on it. So right off the bat, it's complicated because we mentioned earlier in House of Gucci, everybody has an agenda, and clearly the Williams sisters believed that the story of their father, they needed to do something to set kind of the story right as they see it.
Okay.
And I think that's admirable, and I think that's wonderful of them. And I think it's difficult because they're, for good or ill, mostly ill, he definitely had a persona that was portrayed in the media, and it's tough to get past that. And the movie does, I think the movie does an admirable job of being like, look, This is just somebody going after, the quote unquote American dream.
Okay.
And he saw the best opportunity for him to achieve that was through his kids and through making his kids as good as he knew they could possibly be.
Okay.
And I think that's an admirable quality. And I think that's, trying to make somebody as good as they possibly can be. But I also feel like it's like, is that, I don't know if the exploitive nature of that and is delved into genuinely enough here.
There was an attempt at honesty in terms of the portrayal of Richard Williams. But I think it was was careful. Because one of the things that I noticed as this film was ending, that sort of had stuck with me throughout the entire length of the film, which is way too long, was the simple fact that I couldn't sit there and go, yeah, his planning and his approach is what got them there. Yeah, it set a foundation, but they're the ones that had to go out and deliver. And for the most part, there's so much time in this film spent on the notion of he held them back. Right.
Yeah. So the question becomes, all right, he had a plan and his plan worked. Well, did it work because it was a great plan, or did it work because his kids were two of the greatest athletes in the history of the sport?
And because he insisted on the plan working.
I'm going to say that there's way too much credence given to the idea that it worked because his plan was so great. Yeah. Sometimes, I don't know. I think that it opens up way more questions than it really ever wanted to.
Yeah.
At the end of it.
Sure.
And, I commented on a separate thing online that I wanted to like this movie more than I liked Belfast. I liked Belfast good enough. It was fine, but it was just fine. And at the end of the day, I like King Richard, fine, but it was just fine.
Just fine, yeah.
It was just fine,
and
which is good. Hey, yay! It was a good movie. I will never watch it again for any reason. There's just no reason. And regardless of how good Will Smith's performance was, which was fantastic.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, again, I having said what I said and made sure, I wanted to make clear my comments about the portrayal. If we look at it from a film standpoint only, yes, Will Smith was fantastic. Huge props to Anjanou Ellis as Oracene, his wife, the kids, Sydney and Demi Singleton, fantastic as Venus and Serena Williams. John Bernthal doesn't get enough love, but man, he really, carried his portion of things
for sure.
And so again, lots from a film standpoint to say, okay, this was a good film, but like you, I don't know that I'd go back. And I want to be clear that, but when I give my rating, and this is up to the viewer to believe or consider or not, my rating is not based on anything but my view of the film itself. It is not based on my opinion of whether or not this portrayal really inspired us about the way a sports film is intended to. About
I think that's part of
that is Richard Williams.
That has to be part of the review, though.
Maybe.
You can't be like, well, I don't want to say whether or not it inspired me, but if it doesn't inspire me, especially as a sports movie, then what's it doing?
It left me frustrated more often than I think it should have. I wanted more, and I questioned the decision to make that particular match the centerpiece of the last act. That sort of first. I get it, but I had been through so much frustration over the rest of the film that I didn't feel the Yahoo of she's now created a fan base and they're out there waiting. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, there was no Yahoo moment.
No, there wasn't.
There was just are we seriously just going to drag on this match longer than it already has been dragged on?
Oh, I think that's it had to have been the 8 minutes that they talked about. So Paul, for King Richard, your taco rating for this film?
Yeah, that one's getting 3+ guac, which is exactly what I gave Belfast. And why does it get 3+ guac? It gets the 3 because it's a very fine movie, and I'm adding the guac because most of the performances were just absolutely stellar. But honestly, like I will never see this movie again. I can't imagine. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't. Like everybody should definitely see this movie. It's interesting. But yeah, otherwise I definitely wanted more.
I get it. I'm going to stick with the same exact rating, 3 tacos plus guac. My reason for the guac is the same. Fantastic performances within the context of this film. The movie is good, but when I go see a sports-based film, I know they're not all going to be miracle, but I want to get close. And I did not feel like this film delivered in a way that made me feel like, yeah, this is the one of those that I'm going to go back to. Can't take away anything from Will Smith's performance. He is, mostly consistent in terms of the roles he picks and what he portrays. I think this is right up there with the work he did, like I said, for Ali and even Concussion. But yeah, 3 tacos plus guac for King Richard. But you guys check it out and let us know what you think. Now, Paul, our second real quick review is going to be on a film that you watched, and so I'm excited for you to let me know about a little movie called Encanto.
Encanto, another Disney. It's the 60th Disney feature animated movie. That's right. We have more episodes than Disney. And I am an unabashed, self-avowed Disney fanatic. So obviously, whatever I say, you're going to have to take with a grain of salt. But this is a story. It's the music, the songs and lyric, the songs and music is done by Lin-Manuel Miranda. He also was involved in the story development for this one. And it's the story of a family, a Colombian family that is magical, and they have been gifted with special powers that they use to protect their and serve their community. And there's an overbearing matriarch. There's a one young woman, Maribel, that doesn't have superpowers. When you get your power on like a special day when you come of age. They don't really establish what age that is exactly, but you get the feeling it's like 7, 8, 9, somewhere around there. And there's a special ceremony, and then all of a sudden you're a power. The house. The best character in the movie is the house. The house is alive, like so that and it helps the family, and then the house creates a special door for you, and she doesn't get, like, on her birthday. You see, she doesn't get a door. It's a big. And so the movie's about Maribel trying to find her place in the family. I mean, that's really what it is. And what is her role in the overall family? And look, it's Lin-Manuel Miranda, so the songs are fantastic.
Yeah,
it's Disney, so the animation is top notch. And it just works. This is just a classic Disney, and this is going to be right in there with, I hope it should be right in there with, Frozen and Moana, and just the neoclassic Disney films that just absolutely work. They have it down to a science right now. I hope they keep going. I'm glad when they take chances with things like Raya and the Last Dragon, a totally different kind of movie. But I'm also super, super happy when they just go back to their wheelhouse of, a message of somebody finding themselves through their family, and which actually Raya and the Last Dragon has that too. But and this is not to belittle Raya and the Last Dragon, but at the end of this one, you're just like, yay Disney! And I was absolutely yay Disney at the end of this. It really is a fantastic movie. I hope everybody goes see it. We're gonna go with 4 tacos plus guac. It's fantastic. It was, I went and saw it with my son who's 14. He loved it.
Nice.
So everybody, please go take your family. These are the movies. I say this a lot, but but these are the kind of movies that we need to support.
Right.
Like I said it with The Last Duel, which I really liked, and I said, go see The Last Duel. It's not in theaters anymore, but Encanto is. Go see Encanto. These are the kind of movies that we need to tell Hollywood, yes, more of these, please, especially in this time of COVID, where you might be like, oh, I don't know if I want to go to the theater. Go to the theater for this.
Go to the theater.
Yeah.
Encanto, I like it.
Muy bueno.
All right. Well, thank you, Paul, for sharing your thoughts on the film. We encourage you to check it out for yourself and let us know what you think.
I did cry, by the way. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. I should have asked. Asked.
Yeah.
So again, just visit us on our social media. Give us your thoughts on the films we've talked about tonight. Just, there's so much good in terms of film coming out these last few weeks. Still more to come.
There's more to come.
Yeah, much more to come. But
this is a light weekend. This weekend coming up is a light weekend. But we'll figure something out.
Absolutely. Not sure what we'll do for our 100th episode, or maybe we do know, but we're just not going to say. So please join us next Tuesday as we will, for all of our best laid plans. I hope they turn out. It will be our 100th episode of Real to Real Talk. We thank you so much for getting us this far and sticking with us over the almost 2 years that we've been doing this show. And yeah, it's been a whole lot of fun. Paul, thank you so much for all that you do. And thank you once again for holding down the fort the last few times. We miss Susan. I just want to give her a shout out as well. Good luck with school. Keep doing what you're doing.
There we are.
And yeah, thank you to all of you. We appreciate you joining us here week to week and checking out the episodes. We ask that you remember, though, that life is more than movies. It's all about taking care of one another, loving each other, and going to movies together. Yeah, absolutely.
Caring for each other through movies, through
that's
film.
Right. So with that said, we thank you again and say thank you, Blair, for I want to see Flaps Arms Wildly. I think he's talking about you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we'll leave you the way we always do, and that's to remind you that you are awesome, you're amazing, and the world is a better place because you are in it. We'll see you next time.